Once Human. People have asked me to watch this for a while. Whenever I looked at the trailer, I didn't really know what to think about it. So we'll see what this is.
Hey everyone, what's going on? Today we're going to be taking a look at this new game called Once Human. Now this video is sponsored by Starry Studios. They asked me to check out the game and share it with you. I've been keeping an eye on this one since it was first revealed, as it is a genre and type of game that tends to fall into my wheelhouse of interest. Well, now after playing for nearly 20 hours over the past couple of days, I got a pretty good idea of what the game is all about. That's the point of this. We're going to jump in, talk about it.
So this is like a boss.
And just give you an idea of what
looks
is
like
Once Human. So let's jump into it. It is described as a multiplayer open world survival game set in a strange post-apocalyptic future. Now, things open up with a brief tutorial that introduces you to the basics of movement, combat, and
so you can roll
otherworldly elements of the game. In fact, at the start, you'd almost think this was a linear, like, psychological thriller or something
like that,
with you shifting through dimensions, speaking to ethereal beings, playing the piano, and then fighting strange creatures with lamps for heads, or this one with a radio tower for a
This is cool. And this is open world?
Head. But the tutorial, more so than anything, is there to kind of set the tone of the world and story.
You know what they should do? His name was the Siren Head. You know what they should do is they should rename it to The Day Before, and then just have the siren going off the whole time while the boss is there. And then also the boss doesn't move, and it's just totally bugged out. And then after, if you stay in combat with it for like more than 20 minutes, it just dies randomly.
But not really the game's structure, because after not too long, you leave this linear introduction and are dropped into the real game. And I mean quite literally dropped into it, actually, as you find yourself floating high above the starting zone of what is Once Human's open world, third-person, looter-shooter survival game. It is quite the mouthful of genres, but there is a lot going on in this one. Now,
this sounds really cool.
The survival elements are on display as you are asked to gather logs and rocks to construct your first small camp. At this camp, you're able to take other early game materials and craft your first few pieces of gear. Now, when I got started on my playthrough, as I was going around looking for said materials, I stumbled into a nearby town and a pop-up displayed in the upper corner that said Explore Throughville. It gave me a few tasks. It said defeat 9.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's right there. Okay, so that's kind of like New World. Or like, not New World. This is actually just like a Legion World quest. Kill the guys, click the things, open the boxes.
Normal enemies, find weapon and gear crates, along with finding the mysterious treasure. Now, I didn't realize it at the time, but this was actually my first experience with a stronghold. All throughout this game, in every single zone, there are tons of these locations, each of which have a similar list of tasks that, when complete, give you some bonus rewards. Basically, these are like major points of interest set at distinct locations that will be full of enemies to fight, loot to find, and various quests to complete.
The combat does seem like, at least the melee combat, let's be real, guys, it's not as smooth as Remnant 2, is it? It's good. Like, I think it passes the check, but it's not as smooth as Remnant 2.
Out of the game's survival elements, this is a major component.
I think that the gun combat and the gunplay looks decent, though.
The entire experience. In fact, I would say of the 20 or so hours I've played now, I've spent about half of my time going around the map and clearing strongholds like this one, in addition to doing the other various PvE activities like
so I guess those are weak points, same as in Remnant?
Events and boss fights, which we will get to a little later in the video. But to start out, I went to my camp, I constructed my camp, I went to it, I made a few items like some consumables and a pickaxe, and then I headed into that nearby town, that stronghold, and I cleared it. I killed the 9 enemies. Actually killed many more than that.
Yeah, melee really sucks in this game. This looks horrible for melee. Like, the range gameplay seems good, but the melee is just literal trash.
Found both the weapons and the gear crates, as well as the mysterious treasure, which rewarded blueprints for crafting, among a few others.
Which, by the way, like, I want to make sure, like, so far, this is looking very appealing to me. I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing right now. Like, this seems compelling, and I kind of want to play it.
Now, after gathering the basic materials to build my camp,
but the melee sucks.
The game pretty much completely opens up. You have your primary task, which initially is to place a territory and construct your first building, like making your first real base. But outside of that, pretty much able to go and do as you please. You can go around clearing the strongholds, like this first location that I came across. You can harvest materials for crafting. You can hunt wildlife for making food.
So this game is the way The Day Before was supposed to be. It's basically the same game.
various side quests from NPCs in towns or ones found around the world, or you can just continue to progress along the main quest, which introduces you to the game's various elements and features.
So you're interacting with these bosses in the open world. If that's the case, that's fucking incredible. That's awesome.
But you're able to do this at kind of whatever pace and in whatever order that you want. Like, yes, a lot of the main systems are gated behind moving through the main story quest, but the game is just, it drops you in and it's just completely open. You could just focus on gathering materials for hours or going around clearing strongholds and collecting loot. You really can do it in whatever
So I play it like I play Starfield.
Order you want. It is very, very
Never
much
do
so
the MSQ.
an open world that you're free to approach however you like. And after playing the game for these past few days, I gotta say that Once Human really does feel like a good blending of survival game mechanics and features, along with being an open world looter shooter. In a lot of ways, it actually reminds me of other games that I've played and enjoyed in the past, like Defiance or Firefall, or it's kind of like what the day before said they were going to be, but this is an actual real game. Like, there's actually
it's a real game
and features and stuff to do. Unlike the day before. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the various elements, features, and mechanics that are within Once Human. And let's actually start out with the survival stuff. So there are numerous survival mechanics in the game beyond
you get hit by a falling tree
and base building.
Seems
there
like
are systems for stamina, sanity, hydration, and hunger.
And
So
food,
stamina, as you run or perform activities, this drains. It's actually a fairly generous compared to some stamina systems I've seen in other survival games. It takes a very long time for your stamina to deplete, and it regenerates almost instantly once you stop moving. Oftentimes, I don't even notice that there's a stamina system. That's how not in my face it is.
Thank
there is
God.
a thirst meter as well. Over time, you get thirsty. You drink water and other beverages to refill your thirst. And your thirst...
I don't think that survival games need thirst and hunger mechanics anymore. Like, I personally feel like they are... It's like the thing that, like, you put it in the game because you feel like you have to. And also, I only agree with that if it is a binary pass-fail system. I think a thirst and hunger mechanic like Valheim, for example, where you need food because food gives you unique buffs, then I think it's very interesting. But the way that it's designed now with a lot of these games is not fun. Yeah, Valheim innovated on that in a big way.
Level, along with your hunger, are broken up into 4 different tiers. Depending on where you are within those tiers, it will impact things. So for thirst, when you're between 60 and 100%, you get 20% extra sprint speed, and also sprinting costs 50% less stamina. And the hunger system is similar to that. It depletes with time. You need food to fill it. It is also broken up into 4 tiers, these ones impacting your health and carry capacity.
Yeah, see, like, to me, again, this just seems like another... They feel like systems like that feel like ankle weights to me. It's like, okay, I'm trying to run, but like you're putting these on me and I can't run as fast. So it's like I have to constantly like try to take them off. They're time wasters, right? But like with Valheim, I felt like I could customize and like make my character a certain way because I had certain food. That's sort of what you just said it should have before. No, it's not. Because what I'm saying is that different foods should give you different effects. Just because there are different thresholds of food levels isn't the same thing. They're not the same thing. Like, that's not the same as Valheim. It's totally different.
Experience, you rarely ever fully run out of any of these, really, stamina, thirst, or hunger, and the sources of both food and water are pretty plentiful in the game. Like, if you're actively playing, it really isn't difficult at all.
Trying gotcha, as always.
And then the final survival mechanic is the sanity meter. So certain activities, areas, and encounters in the world will lower your sanity level. As your sanity drops, it reduces your max HP. So this includes things like eating certain foods, drinking polluted water, fighting otherworldly enemies, or spending times in these pollution zones. All of these things will deplete your sanity, and your max health depletes in direct proportion to your sanity level. And then
I want to say, like, so you can like ride around in a vehicle. This looks really nice.
Depletes in direct proportion to your sanity level, and then once your sanity drops below 50%, you actually start getting debuffs. Now there will be certain consumables you can use to regain sanity, or if you rest back in bed at your base, you can regenerate your sanity level. There are also even...
So I think they try to do that to like create a gameplay loop of going back to your base. Again, I think that that's okay, but I think that also, like, again, going back to Valheim, which I think is like one of the best games ever, is that you know how you can build different... So there's like something called comfort level in Valheim, where the more like kind of comfort items that you have in your vicinity, in your house, the longer your rested buff would be. So for example, if you had like 25 comfort, or like, I don't remember the cap, I think it was 25 or 20 or something like that. But like, let's say you have 13 comfort. Well, then your rested bonus would last for like an hour and a half or something like that, or like 40 minutes instead of 20 minutes or 10 minutes. And I really like that about Valheim. And I actually hope that this game implements something like that, because it also gives you a metagame of like, because a lot of people like me, for example, I don't care about base building really that much, but I do if there's a reason and it gives me an advantage. I care about it if I get an advantage. And so now it makes base building its own metagame that actually influences the rest of the game. And it creates another reward structure that the game can utilize.
Gear sets in the game that will have like large amounts of sanity depletion resistance to help lower the rate and amount of sanity that you use. Another basic survival system that is in this game as well is base building. So as I mentioned earlier, you start off with this little camp, but that's
and I think that's the thing, right? Is like Valheim, like that's what's interesting, right? Is Valheim took a lot of these mechanics, like the food and water mechanic, and the like rest mechanic, and they turned them into a reward structure rather than a punishment if you don't do them. And that's what I think it did so well.
The mobile base. Really, things get started once you place your first territory. Now, these can be put down actually pretty much anywhere in the world. The only real restriction that I've seen is that you can't place one too close to a stronghold or on certain terrain like roads. You also can't place a territory overlapping with another territory. But outside of those restrictions, you can put your territory and build a base pretty much anywhere in the open world. In fact, while playing the game, you're constantly seeing people's bases all over the place. And
that's so cool. I love that. I remember with PAX Day they had that, and I thought it was amazing.
Middle of the forest, in a field, along the road, in a ravine, wherever you go, you will be bumping into other player-built buildings, structures, and facilities, all dotted in the landscape between the game's major points of interest and strongholds. There's just player bases everywhere. At least that's been the case in the early zones that I've seen in the game so far. So after you build your camp, pretty much within the first hour of playing, you are then asked to place down a territory, and then once you claim a territory, like I said, pretty much wherever you want, beyond a few restrictions, most of the open world you can put your territory down in. Once it's placed down, you can then start constructing your base using whatever templates you've unlocked so far. So there are like basic structural templates for floors, walls, ceilings, roofs, stairs, windows, and doors. There are various facilities like crafting stations, storage, fortifications.
All this is like, I mean, we've seen this in like 10 different games. Like, not that that's a bad thing, but like I understand how this works. I think that most people do. They have power generation too, which is like Rust has that.
Power generation, there's furniture and wallpapers that you can do to customize your buildings, and then there is a house blueprint system that actually lets you copy your exact building to duplicate and or move it. And after you've built a base in your territory, the game actually lets you freely move it around, so you can actually pick up and change the position of your base within your territory's parameters. Or outside of that, you can literally move the entire territory itself, taking it to a completely new spot anywhere on the map, so long as it doesn't overlap with another player territory or is in one of those restricted areas, like I mentioned, near strongholds or on a road or certain terrain. You can move the whole thing whenever. On top of this, there's a guild.
I don't even know if I like that or not, but that's crazy.
System. It's called your hive, and once human, that's what the name of guilds are. So you can either form or join a hive. This puts you in a collective group with other people, and you can also then place down a hive territory that everyone within your guild or within your hive can build and or use. The base building in this game is pretty generous, I would say. Like, it doesn't take much time harvesting resources before you can construct an entire building, which is something that I really appreciate.
Had that?
It's very easy I didn't play to get started and put down a basic structure within which you can put down your crafting stations, your processing, your storage, all of that stuff. Everything that you expect from base building in survival games is pretty much present here in Once Human. And then, of course, to go along with that is the harvesting system. To get those resources for base building and for gear crafting, you'll have to go out there and gather. All of the usual fare is here. You've got various types of trees, ores, rocks, herbs, flowers, fruits, vegetables, and animals that can be harvested, gathered, and processed in service of making your base consumables and gear.
All this makes sense.
That I mentioned mentioned earlier, one of those first structures that you build, this is actually acting as a mobile respawn point. Oftentimes, whenever we come up to
so it's just like New World. Yeah, New World has camps that work the exact same way.
Difficult location, whether it's a boss fight or a challenging stronghold or whatever, any outdoor activity that we think we might die, you just plop down a camp nearby so that you have a close by
So
spawn.
if you can have a base with a guild, can't you just build like a massive guild citadel? Like a giant, like fucking, like huge, like 10-story building? I would assume so, yeah, that'd be fucking badass. A compound, yeah.
If you do happen to die, because otherwise you can only respawn.
Dude, that
at
would be
certain,
fucking cool.
The towers, the fast travel towers, or back at your main
Holy
base
shit.
that's set within your territory. So that's a synopsis of a lot of these survival features, but the survival is only a portion of the game. Really, at least what is more appealing to me and feels like a bigger chunk of my personal
open
play
world
experience
stuff, right?
is all like the looter shooter elements, the open
Yeah.
world RPG, going out, fighting, doing activities,
Jesus,
going to points of
so
interest,
not
doing
good.
PvE stuff, fighting
Right.
enemies, bosses, collecting materials, and loot. The world is completely open, as I mentioned. There is no loading screens as you're moving through a zone. You're just
Wow.
freely able to walk around, going around to all these different spots.
Does Starfield know about this? That's crazy.
Exploring, and in the process, as you're moving through the zone, you're going to see all of the
No,
vegetation,
they don't. Yeah, I didn't
and
think so.
animals, all of that survival stuff to collect the flora and the fauna, but it's also full of all these different locations and points of interest. So as discussed earlier, there are the strongholds, and this is one of the
Right.
major form of PvE activity. These consist of various settlements, outposts, hospitals, military bases,
Do they
all sorts
reset?
of structures that have a number of objectives to complete, which will then reward experience, loot, and currencies. There are also missions that can be found at a lot of these. Some will be acquired in the nearest town, others you'll just see as you approach the area. And the challenges, like in that very first town that I came across, these will include things like kill X number of enemies, defeat elites, kill bosses, find weapon and armor
Strongholds are world
caches,
quests?
and they
Yeah,
almost
kind
always
of.
also have a mysterious treasure hidden somewhere within the area for you to discover. Now, outside of that like basic checklist that every stronghold will have, where if you complete the checklist, you're going to get that like bonus experience and rewards, there's also a lot of like secrets.
Yeah,
and
this is just literally the exact same as like a New World town hall quest. Like, which isn't really a bad thing. It's the fact that that was all that New World had.
many times puzzles nestled within each of these locations. And actually, one of the things that we've really enjoyed while playing through the game is the amount of variety that every single stronghold location, all of these points of interest have of additional things to do within them. So sometimes, for example, you'll come up to a location that will have a shutdown electrical component, like a door that's locked, or an elevator that you need to find a fuse and put it in a fuse block so that then lets you power it up and actually use that. Sometimes there
Starfield had that.
be puzzles or bosses or other sort of challenges within these points of interest within
I'm gonna say that, like, I'm really impressed with like the style. Like, I mean, the style isn't like actually really that original or anything, but I think this is way better than what, like, they should just put this on their official channel. This is a better, it's weird, I'm like thinking of the right way to say this. Watching gameplay of this game is better than the trailer of the game.
Strongholds that you have to get across before you can actually progress.
Because the trailer
forward.
wasn't
One of the ones
that great.
That we came across that was the most interesting though was in this big hospital area.
Yeah,
We
this
found
is
a guy
really cool.
nearby who was calling for help, and we approached him, and he explained that he had like lost his wife, but also lost some medical supplies, and he wanted us to go retrieve them. So we went into the hospital. This area was a lot denser. There was a good amount of enemies there. Lots of verticality. There's a ton of different buildings and stuff. You have to look around, searching around the hospital, going through the different levels, fighting enemies along the way, and eventually we made our way onto the area where we found the specific supplies that we were looking for. But interacting with the supplies then teleported us to another dimension. It was a room with 4 doors, one in each cardinal direction. Now, as you move through the doors, it actually kept bringing you back to that.
You guys remember that in Super Mario RPG? Any boomers in here remember King's Quest, the desert, trying to get through the oasis?
Same room, and it was confusing. It would go through the doors, I'm still in the same room. I checked every direction, I was always in the same room. But eventually we noticed that there was a calendar on the wall in the door, and every time you checked the calendar, when you moved a room, the the date would change. And essentially how it worked was, depending on the direction that you moved, north, south, west, or east, it would change either forward or backwards the month and the day. And we had to essentially get it onto a certain day before we were able to leave this never-ending maze of rooms.
What a
and progress the
motherfucker.
story forward. I mean, this was really interesting, and this is just one example.
This, by the way, is really cool. Like, I fucking hate it, but it's really cool.
Of sort of this additional activity.
It's like a video game escape room
that these strongholds can have beyond the checklist of killing enemies and finding loot crates, essentially, and killing elites or bosses. There'll be additional things in there. We've come across quite a few strongholds. Most of the strongholds actually have an additional layer to them outside of that checklist, which is really, really neat. And I think probably one of the more surprising things about this game so far, that with our playtime with it, is that we have kept coming across unexpected things at these strongholds and out in the open world. And if things continue...
look at that. You see that?
Expected things at these strong...
He's got a propane can on him. So you can tell that he's going to blow up. That's cool.
Strongholds and out in the open
I wonder
world.
if you can shoot the bottom of it, like shoot the crab's legs, and it would still blow it up.
And if things continue like they have for these first 20 or
propane
so hours,
and propane
there appear
accessories,
to be hundreds of areas in the game that
oh my
will
God.
have unique, different twists
What
to
the
them
fuck?
beyond that initial checklist.
Yeah,
which,
that's
if
really
that holds
big.
Up throughout the course of continuing to play the game, even though we've only gone through the first couple of zones in these first 20 hours, there's already been consistent variety. And if that keeps up, that is really, really interesting. Now, beyond all of these strongholds and stuff, the world is filled with all sorts of other stuff. There's like interesting dynamic world events that can pop up. On a few occasions, we would just
now this is the cool shit. That's really cool, because like, yeah, a lot of these open world, you need to have like those like big dick style world events to make things feel exciting.
World, and then all of a sudden
the graphics are really bad.
Would roll in like super thick.
Yeah, they're not that great.
To see but a few meters in front of you, and there was a massive warning timer that popped up as well. But it was a countdown to 0. After which point, I'm assuming you probably died. We've seen roaming world bosses. There was a time where I was in my base and I looked out the front door, and there was this school bus with 4 legs stampeding past my house. Or sometimes in those strongholds that we mentioned, there can be massive bosses that will appear. Like when we were in Overlook Town at the stadium. We saw this giant 4-story creature that had a big flower for a head. There's also
dude, that's incredible. This is amazing.
These horde mode events that can appear in certain parts of the world where you fight off waves of enemies. And there's other notable points of interest around the map, like NPC-filled towns with vendors and side quests for you to complete. There are teleportation towers letting you quickly move across the world, but you actually have to physically go to and unlock these before you can use them. And there's a bunch of small enemy camps outside of the strongholds. There are smaller versions of little towns, encampments, structures, and areas full of enemies dotted all around the map. Beyond all of this, in terms of PvE, the game also has large-scale, difficult to take on boss battles. These are called mono.
See, that's what I'm kind of curious about. Is like, how do boss battles work? How many people can you bring in here? Like, could I bring 50 people in here and just kill this guy in 3 seconds? Is his health scale X50? Is there a ceiling on that? That's what I'm kind of curious about. 4? Okay, so is it kind of like in New World, where if you want to challenge one of the arenas, it's like 4 people go inside and they fight the boss, and then it resets, then 4 more people go inside? Is that how it works? It's an instance dungeon. Oh, okay, I understand. It's instance entirely.
So we've come across 2 of them so
I didn't know
far
if they were open world or not.
The first one was Foul Shadow Hunter, this twisted mutant with a massive gun in one hand.
I want to do it solo. I'll probably do it like one-on-one.
In addition to this gun, he summoned a bunch of ads. He got this rocket launcher, which he would shoot rockets that tracked you down, and he would also spew out pools of poison. This worked in multiple phases. We had to shoot the gun, go through the phases, kill the ads, avoid the rockets, rinse and repeat. And then we also fought this tree ant boss, which was just a massive...
This is really cool. Again, like, if you just pause, like, this is the kind of game, what I really like about it is that if I pause the game, I can notice, like, little things, like the school bus, the destroyed highway there. Like, this is nice.
Tree creature. It had this lady in its head that would, like, make noises and summon in and cast all these...
By the way, there's a boss in Remnant that literally does this mechanic, that has that weak point, and that looks like this.
Spells. They would summon up these giant tree branches that we'd have to destroy before we could attack the boss. Spit out these bubbles that would track us around the map.
Which, by the way, I thought that boss was a very good boss. W yoink.
You had to dodge them the last second as it got really close
Oh,
to you.
you can't shoot them in
Remnant.
Remnant.
A few points shot out this giant, massive
To be
laser
fair, yeah,
beam
you
that
actually can't
had
shoot
to
these in
try to
Remnant.
line of sight. And those are just the first 2 boss battles we've seen. As far as I know,
Yeah, this is slightly
quite a
different.
few more in the game. That's just what we've come across in the progression through the main story up to this point. I do also want to mention, I don't have any personal experience with it in my first 20 hours, but I do know this game will have PvP. From what I've seen in research, it looks like there's going to be some form of base rating. I know that the game will have like PvP specific servers, and if you join that server, you can engage in this base rating and defense PvP.
Yeah, I think that if this game had PvP in it, it would have to be a PvP server like Rust. I don't know how you would like figure out all the nuances, but I could see this really going hard. Like, you guys might not know this. I think Rust is one of the greatest games ever made.
System, presumably for some really good rewards. Now, a form of PvP that we do have experience with, though, is the open world PvP. There will be portions of the map that are flagged and labeled. If you mouse over them, they basically say like a conflict zone, and there's just full-on PvP within these segmented off regions. Although they are fairly easy to avoid as you walk towards one. There's just this massive wall of color.
Yeah, I think that they should do it with like you know, turning it off and on, etc. Like kind of like war mode or like specific zones. But, like, there should be a PvP server. Like, where everybody, like, it's, like, only for people that play it on that way.
And then when you cross the threshold, full PvP is enabled, and they've got like special events going on where you basically compete with others to try to be the winner and get a bunch of cool stuff. But that's not what happened to us. We just like instantly died.
Bleeding
we had
out.
no idea what was going on. Now, it wouldn't be a loot-based game. It wouldn't be like a looter shooter style game if it weren't for progression. And quite a few progression system is in the game. Starting with the cradle, this is the backpack that you carry around with you at all time, and it's tied into your character and craft.
You know, they have these for birds in real life. Like, people can get a backpack, and it's a clear see-through backpack, and you can put your bird in the backpack and walk around with your bird. And cats, yeah.
Progressions. So first there's the memetics, which is a progression tree to unlock the various aspects of base building and crafting. As you play, doing various activities, you unlock points for this, and you spend points in any of the 5 categories depending on what you want at the time. So there's territory construction, which gives you the basics of base building, including being able to place the walls, ceilings, floors, doors, storage, lights, and stairs. There are facilities, which unlock the higher tiers of armor and weapons crafting. Tactical supplies is for ammo, explosives, healing, and other consumables. Fortification is for base defenses, traps, and turrets, and then logistics is for cooking, water purification, and power generation. As you start the game, you will have the base level versions of base building and crafting, but to get those higher tiers, those later level things,
this does make me a little bit concerned. Anything that I ever see that has a weekly or a daily limit on it, it always makes me paranoid because I think to myself, are they going to sell you a way to uncap this or reset this? Like, obviously, this is just, like, me being a, you know, like, a super, like, doomer person. Like, there's no reason for me to think this, but it is something that I'm like, oh, wait a second, is it one of these situations?
Of base building and crafting, but to get those higher tiers, those later level things, you unlock this through the memetics tree. And then with the cradle, there's also called the cradle override system. Now, these are powerful passive buffs that will enhance your...
Let me read these. Damage a shotgun. Okay.
Combat capabilities. You unlock these by doing...
When in scope mode, sniper rifle crit rate 30%. Holy fuck, that's insane. That's nuts. Look at that.
Some of the main pinnacle content in the game, like defeating those large boss monoliths that we mentioned. Going through the campaign, defeating those gives you access to new cradle overrides. And yeah, these are really strong buffs that increase like your offensive capabilities, for example, letting you specialize with certain weapon types that you want to enhance. Also, as part of the game's progression is the blueprint and gear system. So blueprints, as you play, you discover both armor and weapons blueprints. You find blueprints at many of those major points of interest, the strongholds, and by completing certain main and
oh, so there's set gear in the game. Look at that. Wow.
Story quest. Now, once you unlock the blueprints for making something, you can then take the materials needed for and then craft them. There's also a subsystem of...
Wait, so there are guns here, but what's this? Yeah, what do you do with this one here? do you just like or what?
Fragments where you collect bits and pieces of blueprints and then you put them together for the full blueprint, or you can feed them to enhance blueprints, increasing their star rating, which just increases their overall power. Those blueprints are used to fuel the
Okay, so it's kind of like getting that's okay.
Gear, the weapons and armor. A majority of the gear, with the exception of a few melee weapons I found out in the wild, most gear is acquired via crafting.
Right.
So you've got spots for 2 ranged weapons, 1 melee, and then there are gear slots for a helm, goggles, gloves, boots, chest, and legs. Gear will come in multiple rarities.
Oh, thank God. They're not going to try to reinvent the wheel.
Higher the rarity, the better the stats, and the better the passive and active abilities. All craftable armor in the game is found via getting those blueprints. It has to be crafted with materials you gather, and also the armor will be parts of sets that will have set bonuses, with thresholds unlocking stronger bonuses. These will be focused on harvesting and gathering.
Let me read some of these. HP above 70%, use least potent activator whenever it's... Oh, wow, an auto heal. That's nuts. Oh, yeah, some of these, these sets are really interesting.
Focused on crafting,
wow.
Focused on being defensive or offensive in various elements, focused on things like resistances to help you reduce sanity loss. Ton of different sets with different bonuses depending on what sort of thing you want to focus on. Beyond the different rarities, gear will also come in several tiers. The higher the tier, the better the stats. However, to make those higher tiers, they're going to cost rarer, more difficult to acquire resources. Also, all of the game's crafting does require use of some energy, so the game does have an energy system. For many major elements. This includes unlocking those various progression things in your cradle. This includes crafting gear. This even includes doing things like fast travel. For now, I do know that you're able to get energy from certain containers in the world that you find, or specifically, you get a lot of energy. But
what else can you get the energy?
Bosses at the various strongholds.
Sure.
There will almost certainly be other energy sources that
I'm
just not aware of, or that we haven't yet come across within.
Like what? Like maybe, like, I don't know. Like what else? What other energy sources could there be?
In our 20 hours of play. But yes, this game does have an energy system tied to a lot of major things. There's also a system of mods.
So this does make me worried, because I've played games with energy systems before. And I think that an energy system with a game that doesn't have any pay to win is okay, because it gets people to go out into the world and like do other things. I think that's fine fundamentally. But this does really scare me, because, like, for example, The First Descendant, how many of you guys played that one? And that was a good game. It was a decent game, right? There were a lot of things that were wrong with it and weren't so good, but, like, it was a decent game. But, like, in the beta for The First Descendant, it wasn't pay to win, but it's being made by Nexon. So, like, and like, if you've played a lot of these gacha games, like, I've now played, like, 5 of them. Like, you can easily tell, like, where these things are going with these systems, right? Like, you can tell, like, okay, there's the purple things, and then you have the upgrading material. Like, I can open up a gacha game, and I can look at 10 new currencies, and I can instantly understand them, because they're from the same it's the same game every time. Like, I'm not a wizard, and you can do the same thing, right? It's the same template, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about whenever I say that? Yeah. The energy is not energy system. It's literally the currency of what the game is called. It can be farmed easily and repeatable on the same bosses or mobs freely out in the world. I did not disagree with that. But you know what? You can say the same thing with energy and Honkai Star Rail. You can farm it freely out in the open world, or like different things like that. Same with Genshin, or sorry, Stellar Crystals, not energy. Stellar Crystals. You can do all of that. You get them through dailies. You get them through opening boxes. Not infinitely? No, not infinitely. It's a limited extent, yeah.
This is pretty straightforward. You will attach a mod to the corresponding piece of gear and get some bonus.
Well, I don't think it might be a one-to-one, but like it like, I don't think that my concern is misplaced. I'm not saying I'm right. I could be totally off base with this, but I've seen a lot of games with these systems, and seeing an energy system does immediately. Now I am aware. Now I'm looking around. You know, I'm like, uh-oh. Where's it going to be coming from? Is it the weapons? Is it the gear? Is it, what is it? Yep. It's not a red flag. It's just a yellow flag.
Bonus, either increasing your damage, defenses, or things like your movement speed. So that is a basic overview of most of the major elements and components and features within Once Human. Now, without a doubt, I do want to say here, with a
Hopefully
game
I'm
like
wrong.
this that has so many different forms,
because this is really cool,
multiple resources, and that energy system, the question still remains about monetization. This is one of those things where we'll have to wait and see exactly where it lands when it releases, but I am expecting the typical assortment of paid-for features to bypass time or grinding gates, as is the
if the game has pay for convenience, then I don't know if I'll really play the game a whole lot. I don't know. I mean, again, like, I would probably try it out. Like, if it has a battle pass that has all of the pay for convenience built into the battle pass, the same as like you know, the crystalline aura in in Lost Ark, I actually don't care about that, because I view a battle pass that gives advantages like that, I view that as the same thing as a subscription. So, like, how can I dislike that, but I'm okay with paying a sub in WoW? So, like, if there is just simply a weekly purchase or a monthly purchase that you need to make that is a reasonable fee, that is effectively a subscription cost that allows you to play the game to its full capacity, then I'm actually okay with that, because I think for a live service game, the user should be expected to, like, chip in somehow, right? Like, you can't just play a live service game that's being continuously developed for free. Like, they can't make any money that way. But this game's free to play? I don't know. Microtransactions so lucrative, it's impossible to find games nowadays without them? No, it's not. There are many games nowadays that don't have microtransactions. But there aren't as many as there were.
Case with any game like this, my philosophy is I will go in enjoying what I can before hitting those limitations and checking out. It is yet to be determined where exactly Once Human will fall on the spectrum.
Yeah, I don't want to, like, draw a line in the sand and say I'll never fucking play a game of this fucking shit. I fucking do it. I beat a shit. No, I mean, like, if it's all right, I'll play it, try it out, see what it's like. But games like this, I usually don't really stick around with that long, because I usually realize, like, I'll play the game for a while, and then I'll see, like, okay, well, if I spent $1,000, I'd be better at the game. But why would I do that if all it takes is spending $1,000? So, like, what's the point?
We will have to wait and see until release to know for certain. But yes, lots of currencies, lots of different resources, and an energy system. Now, all of that said, the base version of this game, as I mentioned at the top, it reminds me of games that I've played and enjoyed quite a bit.
Yeah, this looks really good.
It reminds me a bit of Defiance. It reminds me a bit of Firefall. And I really enjoyed both of those games. I enjoyed the structure. I enjoyed the open world nature. I enjoy the RPG elements. I enjoy the looter shooter elements. There's a lot about this game that are, even in just these first 20 hours, I've found very appealing. A lot of times when I do sponsor dedicated videos, it will either have to be for a game that I've played and enjoyed in the past so that I'm fairly confident in, or B, an upcoming game that I haven't tried yet, but I'm interested in because of its genre or because it looks like
free
a game
money.
That might be appealing to me.
Yeah.
This was in the category of B. This is a genre of game. This is a type of game that I typically enjoy, so I wanted to check it out, and I was happy to provide a basic overview of it. But it's not always the case that I come away from one of these, doing one of these sponsored videos, wanting to continuously play the game after making it, even if it is something that I enjoy. But that has been
I'm glad I actually am seeing gameplay of it, because, like, before I didn't see any actual gameplay of this game.
With Once Human. They have done something here with crafting their open world and their balancing of survival and looter shooter mechanics that I have found quite appealing.
Oh, bro,
and once this video is done, I'm
to
expecting to continue to play in the coming weeks. But my own personal experience aside and my own impressions aside, the main goal of a video like this is just to inform you and share with you what type of game that it is. So hopefully now that you've seen this, you have a better idea of what Once Human is all about, now that we've given you an overview of many of its major systems systems and features. I've only played a little over 20 hours at this point, and with a game like this that is
So you
basically
can kill
just scratching
crocodiles.
the surface, there's still clearly much more for me to see, learn, and know about before I have a complete understanding of the totality of the game. But hopefully, ideally, the point of this was to act as a good primer and an introduction to see if it's something that you might be interested in. So thanks again to Starry Studios for sponsoring today's video.
Yeah,
now,
this is really good.
It is currently in a beta test. They will be holding this test from now through the end of the month. It is available to anyone. All you need to do is head onto the website, register, and download the client. If you're interested, there'll be a link below for you to do just that. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, I think I'm going to play this. Yeah, I think I'm going to play it. I think I'll start on Tuesday. I'll start playing this on Tuesday and get into it. It's closed beta now? Well, I'll probably figure out a way to get in. You know, that's it. And you won't be able to? Well, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, there's the video. Give it a like. This one was actually pretty good. Like, I saw, actually, speaking of this game, let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, this is one of the bosses here.
We don't have a timer.
I don't know.
Yeah, look at this.
I'm up on this bridge here, just hitting crit after crit after crit.
Yeah.
Cause thoughts on the video? Yeah.
Keep doing that. I'm shooting the orbs coming after you.
He's turning now. I'm not going to be able to hit him that much more. I'm coming down.
Holy shit.
Laser,
Damn.
Laser.
That looks pretty good, man. I'm gonna be honest. Like, that actually looks cool. And then look at this. That's like that boss that that Force showed in the video.
And the fact that it drops off passengers.
Holy shit, man.
Passengers.
I gotta say, guys, I think that's pretty fucking cool. Yeah, that's pretty fucking cool, man. And so I will, I'll definitely try this game out. I think I'm going to. Like, before, like, I was very, like, half and half on it. I was like, oh, maybe this game's gonna be good, maybe not. Now, after I see it, yeah, this is actually quite good. I like it a lot. And so I will try it. I'll be scared from buses from now on. Yeah. And trailer didn't portray it that well. Dude, the trailer did an awful job. Like, the trailer actually sucked compared to just, like, straight up a video about the game. Like, hey, take a look at the game. Here's the fucking game. And that's it.